So let's talk a little bit about family law. So when you go to file for divorce, dissolution, legal separation, that is a family law case. So that's normally where you would hear family law, family court. Most courts will call it something along the lines of a family law or family court system within their court system. So when you go to file for divorce, that's where you end up is it starts a court case in the family court typically. It's usually filed by an initial filing, some type of complaint, petition, something, petition for dissolution, something like that is filed with the court, pay a filing fee. You have to serve the other side, usually, meaning you have to provide them a copy. There might be a specific procedure on how you're supposed to do that to make sure that they have notice. They know about the fact that you're suing them for divorce, because that's what it is. It's basically a lawsuit for legal separation or divorce. Now you have to look at the state law first of all. So whatever state you're in, there's a general set of state law that covers divorce proceedings, family law. There might be a family code section that covers it. There's also going to be rules and procedures, probably on the state law level, and then also within the county or local jurisdiction that you live in. So the courts should be able to point you in the right direction. Even on their website, they might have a link to local rules, court rules, local procedure. So you can read up on that and understand how the process works. You also need to understand that judges that get assigned cases sometimes have their own rules. They might not follow all the specific rules that the court sets. They may say, hey, I've got my own set of rules. They may post those somewhere. Their clerk might know about them, or it might just be the way they've done things for 30 years. So you usually want to check with the court where your case gets assigned. So when you file, it gets assigned to a certain judge or department. Check with the clerk or whoever's handling the case and say, hey, does this judge have any specific rules or procedures that I should know about that aren't posted anywhere? So you understand, because I've seen this, that I had in my own case, I represented myself for part of the time in a divorce and then hired an attorney for specific sections, like a trial. Um, but I followed what I thought were the rules, and only to have the judge get upset because I wasn't following their specific way they do things, which wasn't posted anywhere. There's no way for me to know that unless I regularly go to court. So that's one of the benefits of hiring an attorney, is that they regularly go to court. If you go with someone that's a specific family law or family attorney who handles these type of cases regularly in your local area that you live, the local courts, so they would know, hey, this judge does things this way. This might not be the right judge to be in front of. Let's figure out a way to switch to another judge if possible. So they're going to know kind of that inside knowledge that you may not be able to determine on your own, but even by researching. Um, so that is one of the benefits, that they have a relationship with the judges and the other attorneys, and they understand how they work. So it makes things flow a little smoother, but it doesn't mean you have to have an attorney representing you. So in terms of costs, it could be a flat fee that they charge of $2,000 to handle a divorce, or $4,000, or whatever it is. They could charge you a flat fee, depending on the complexity, or they might charge you hourly. Could be $200, $400, $500 an hour. Kind of depends on your location and what the normal rate is. So they're going to ask for an amount up front, and then they're going to charge you hourly. In some cases, if you're not able to pay, there could be self-help or pro bono services that the court has that could provide help. They usually don't give you an attorney, but in some cases, the law allows, depending on the state, if you don't have the money, you can make the other side pay your attorney fee. So check into that first, because you might be able to hire an attorney without paying them up front, and then they have to try to go after the other side. So if the other side has a lot of money, makes decent money, and you don't have any, then in some cases, you may be able to still hire an attorney without money up front, and then they have to go after the other side to pay their attorney's fees. So that's something that they can ask for in court. So that's something to think about as well, is, okay, is there a way that I can hire an attorney and the other side has to pay? Now, if you do decide to do it yourself, then you have to understand all of the rules along the way, the court rules, the procedures, make sure you're following all timelines, because courts do not, they don't have a lot of leeway if you missed a time frame. If you were supposed to provide disclosures of your assets and liabilities to the other side by a certain time, you need to make sure that's done. The court's going to set hearings and deadlines, or they might be in the local rules or procedures on timelines that you need to follow. You need to make sure you follow all this stuff exactly. Some judges are lenient and they understand you're representing yourself. And so they'll say, okay, I understand. I'll give you a little latitude because you missed a deadline or something, but some don't. So you want to make sure that you're following all the rules. A lot of courts will have self-help information on their website. They may also have pre-printed forms that you just basically download and print out yourself to file. And so this is going to save you a lot of time figuring out what needs to be filed and making sure that you file the right form in the court, or even the clerk when you go, if you go in person to file, they'll say, hey, this is the wrong form, or you didn't fill this out properly, and they'll give it back to you to fix. So it is possible to do it yourself. If there's, if it's a question of, okay, I have the money, but I don't really want to spend it on an attorney, the biggest thing to think about is, what are the risks of doing it yourself? If I do something incorrectly, am I going to get hit with some huge alimony amount that I'm going to have to pay? Am I going to have all of my assets taken away? Is there some kind of argument I can make? Because there's a lot of laws out there. There's a lot of case law. Basically, case law is when there's a certain law out there, but then cases where judges make decisions could interpret or change what that law means. So case law could tell you, okay, well, in this case, if it's a community property state where all of our assets are thrown together during marriage and all of our debts are common during marriage, anything before or after the marriage is completely separate, but during the marriage, all of our assets or income that we make are put together. Maybe there's some kind of argument that, okay, I owned the house before we got married, and so any appreciation of the house, increase in value during the marriage, might be community property, but the value before the marriage might be mine, or mortgage payments. There might be a formula to plug those into to come up with, okay, how much of this house that I owned before we were married does the community or the other side, the other spouse, have an interest in? What do I need to pay them? And some of those formulas can vary. So there could be arguments under certain cases that, can help you to where you benefit, financially from it. So if you have a fair amount of assets, or a lot of the other side has racked up a bunch of debt that you don't want to be responsible for, it might be worth spending the time and money, at least getting a consultation, or maybe hiring an attorney under a limited scope representation to, pay them for 5-10 hours of their time to help come in for a certain hearing, to prepare a motion or something that makes your arguments for you, and maybe can help save you some money, or deal with things. The other thing to think about too is, since I've been through this and represented myself for part of a divorce and then hired an attorney for different sections, the other thing you don't think about, especially when it comes to family law, is the emotions. Since I'm an attorney, I felt like, okay, well, I can go in, I can make arguments. I know the law, I know what I'm doing. But when you're sitting in court in that position with your soon-to-be former spouse, emotion can take over, and they might say something that triggers you, or you're not able to think clearly, and you don't make the argument that you thought you were going to make because all these emotions are coming up. So the other benefit of hiring an attorney is having somebody who's completely neutral. Like, they're arguing on your behalf as your advocate, but the emotion doesn't bother them. Like, somebody says something, hey, he did this, he did that, she did this, she did that, he cheated, she cheated, they stole money. The attorney, it's not going to phase them, but you might get upset, and that could affect your ability to properly represent yourself. So that is one of the other benefits that people don't think about, is they just think it costs a lot of money, but the attorney is going to stay calm and be able to make the arguments and think when times where your emotions might be taking over and then you're not able to, you realize, oh man, I totally blew it because I was upset. So those are some of the things to think about. Uh, how much assets and liabilities are involved. You don't want to rack up 10, 20, 30, $40,000 in attorney's fees. And I've seen cases that drag on where your hundreds of thousands of dollars in attorney's fees are paid because cases last 3, 4 years. And attorneys have to sit in court waiting for a case to be called. So your case might be on calendar in the morning at 9 a.m. and your attorney's sitting there until 4 p.m. when they finally call the case. So they've billed you 6, 7 hours of their time just to sit there. And that's common. So time can really add up. The cost can really add up, but you just have to look at, okay, what are the benefits versus the cost of hiring an attorney? Do I have a lot of potential assets to lose or liabilities? What are the potential arguments to look at? So those are some of the things to think about, the emotion of it, obviously the cost and benefit. Do you have a lot of assets? Do you have a lot of liabilities? Is there something to make an argument over? If there isn't, might not be worth hiring someone. Try to figure it out on your own. Research court rules, state law, standard forms, the specific judge you're in front of or department. They have specific rules or the way that they handle things. Make sure you comply with all of that. So hopefully this helps.